Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're tackling a question that I suspect many of you might be asking. Is Neonode a good time to buy now? We're going to take a comprehensive look using all the sources you've provided, everything from recent news to, the financial filings, to really try and understand this company's current situation. And hey, before we jump in, just a quick request. If you find this analysis helpful, please do remember to subscribe, like, and maybe leave a comment. Also, if there's a specific company you'd like us to look into next time, just drop it in the comments below. Okay, so Neonode. Wow. This company has seen some, truly eye-watering volatility lately. We've got quite a bit to unpack here, especially with that dramatic stock plunge that seemed to come out of nowhere.
It really did. And it left a lot of people scratching their heads.
Exactly, especially since it happened despite what looked like some pretty positive news on the surface. So we're going to pull apart the financials, dissect the business model, look at what the market's saying, and try to figure out what might be coming next, give you the clearest possible picture. All right, let's jump right into it. That shockwave that just hit Neonode. What exactly happened there?
Well, it was pretty stark. On September 4th, 2025, you saw this extreme volatility event. In pre-market trading, the stock just plummeted. We're talking a staggering 76.77%.
76%? Wow.
Yeah. It closed the day before at $21.52, and then, boom, crashed down to around $5.
That's not just a drop. That's a breakdown.
It really is.
But here's the part that really makes you pause, the absolute ticker. This massive plunge happened despite Neonode announcing a major patent settlement.
Exactly. That's the baffling part.
They announced they expect, $15 to $20 million in gross proceeds from a deal involving Samsung?
Right, and Neonode gets half of that, 50%, through an older assignment agreement from 2019.
So, how do you even begin to square that circle? Good news, stock tanks.
Well, that's the real puzzle, isn't it? The market's reaction. Despite this potential cash windfall, a significant amount, the shares just absolutely collapsed.
So why? Why would investors react so negatively?
It really begs the question. I think it points directly to some deep-seated skepticism. Skepticism about the company's ability to create long-term value. Maybe questions about its overall capital strategy.
Or maybe just a feeling that this one-time settlement doesn't really fix deeper underlying problems.
Precisely. That it's a temporary boost, not a fundamental shift.
Okay, so if that's the immediate market reaction, what does it tell us about Neonode's underlying financial health? Let's peel back that layer.
Yeah, let's look at the numbers you shared.
And let's be blunt here. The core business seems to be shrinking and, bleeding cash. Their revenue for fiscal 2024, just $3.11 million. That's down almost 19% year over year from $3.83 million in 2023.
A significant drop.
Yeah. And while, they did manage to narrow their net loss, it was down to $6.47 million for 2024, which is about 36% less loss than the year before.
Which is an improvement in loss, technically.
Right, but it's still a pretty significant hole they're in.
Absolutely. Putting this into the broader context, it's abundantly clear Neonode remains unprofitable. They're operating at a negative EPS, minus $0.38 on a trailing 12 months basis. And because of those persistent losses, there's no current PE ratio to even look at.
And no guidance for getting profitable anytime soon?
No, nothing in the available filings. No company guidance pointing towards profitability. Plus, analyst coverage is really limited. There's just one analyst we could find rating it hold with a $6 price target.
Which implies slight downside from where it is now, even after the crash.
Exactly. No consensus projections for any kind of significant earnings turnaround in the near term.
Okay, so looking at their financial health overall, market cap around $103 million as of September 5th. And you mentioned they've consistently been cash flow negative.
Yes, consistently. They essentially rely on external capital, raising funds, and these occasional big patent settlements like the Samsung one.
Which brings us right back to liquidity, doesn't it?
It does. It raises a critical question there. Without recurring license deals, that cash runway looks incredibly tight.
Even with this settlement potentially coming in?
Well, yes, because while their balance sheet usually shows low debt, there's this very high reliance on these periodic windfalls. It's almost like winning the lottery sometimes. And importantly, the board hasn't even decided yet how they'll use the Samsung money. Plus, there are unresolved tax implications, distribution questions.
So even getting the cash doesn't automatically mean smooth sailing?
Not at all. Not without a clear, communicated plan for how it shores up the future.
Okay, so beyond the numbers, what is Neonode's actual business? How are they trying to compete?
Good question. They operate in optical sensing, machine perception, and also licensing intellectual property for tech components. They own this tech called Z-Force, which they license out to OEMs, Tier 1 auto suppliers, that sort of thing.
And it's a pretty small company, right? Only 43 employees.
Yeah, relatively small. Which, as you pointed out, suggests maybe limited R&D scale, limited market reach compared to the bigger players they're competing against.
And you mentioned a pivot. What's that about?
Yes, this is quite striking, actually, their recent strategic pivot. Neonode seems to be shifting more and more towards becoming a pure-play patent licensing company. So, focusing on monetizing their IP rather than selling hardware or software products directly.
A patent portfolio can be valuable, but that sounds risky.
It comes with significant weaknesses, definitely. You've got limited diversification for one. There's a heavy concentration risk if you're relying on just one or maybe a few key patents. And crucially, it makes you highly dependent on litigation, which is often lengthy, costly, unpredictable, and these infrequent settlements for revenue.
Yeah, it feels like a high-stakes gamble, as you said.
It really does.
Okay, so with that fundamental picture in mind, let's look at the market reaction again. The price action, the indicators, since all this news hit.
Right, the technical side.
The intraday price range as of September 5th was $3.80 to $7.74, which is just a massive change from its 52-week range of $3.80 to almost $30.
Huge volatility.
Yeah. So the key support level to watch now seems to be that $3.80, the bottom of the 52-week range.
Makes sense.
Resistance might be near $6, that analyst target we mentioned, then maybe $7.74, a recent high, and way up there, the old close of $21.50.
A long way back to that level.
A very long way. And when we look at the technical indicators, well, the charts are pretty much screaming caution, aren't they?
They really are. Neonode is trading below every major moving average. The 10-day, 20-day, 60-day, 200-day, 250-day, you name it, it's below it.
So this isn't just a blip, it's a deep downward trend.
A persistent one, yes.
Yeah.
And we're also seeing bearish crossover signals. Shorter-term averages falling below longer-term ones, it confirms the weakness.
And the MACD.
Deeply negative, minus 1.58, just confirming what the price action is telling us. The momentum is firmly pointing down.
So zooming out, what are these indicators telling us overall?
Well, the short-term momentum indicators, they point towards likely consolidation, maybe some sideways movement, but definitely continued high volatility. But the medium to long-term pressure is clearly downwards.
Even though its beta is relatively low, I saw 0.79.
Right, which suggests it's not inherently super volatile compared to the broader market normally. But this recent price action is just unprecedented for the company. It's entirely news-driven, driven by this settlement and the reaction to it.
Okay, beyond the charts there, what's the general mood, the sentiment around Neonode right now?
Extremely cautious. I'd almost say bordering on fearful in some corners. If you look at social media, forums, that kind of thing, the sentiment is largely skeptical. It's quite polarized after the patent news and that huge crash.
Which reinforces that idea that investors just aren't buying into a one-time windfall, right?
Exactly. It powerfully reinforces it. They're not convinced if the underlying business model doesn't look solid and sustainable. They want more than a temporary fix.
Okay, given all of that, what should investors be watching for near term, long term, and what are the biggest risks still lurking?
Good questions. For short-term catalysts, you definitely want to keep an eye on the final payment details from that Samsung Iqueta settlement. Getting the cash could impact the balance sheet, but remember the net value after everything, and crucially, what the board plans to do with it. That remains uncertain.
Right, the plan matters.
Immensely. Also, any news, legal updates, settlement whispers on their ongoing patent fight with Apple, that could cause another huge volatility event.
Ah, yes, the Apple litigation. That's a big one.
A very big one. And then, of course, you've got the Q3 earnings release scheduled for November 7th, 2025.
Plus other market events like index rebalancing in September, institutional holdings disclosures in October. Those could drive some trading, too.
Absolutely. They can definitely add to the volatility around quarterly periods.
So connecting that to the bigger picture.
The key thing is confirmation of how those Samsung funds are actually allocated. Is it going into R&D, stock buybacks, dividends maybe, or operational expansion? How they use that money will significantly impact investor confidence.
And longer term?
Longer term, it really boils down to the success or failure of this strategic shift to a pure IP licensing model.
Yeah.
Will it actually work? Will it generate consistent revenue? That's what will determine their future sustainability. And, broader market factors matter too. Changes in demand for optical sensing, machine perception tech, Shifts in the automotive sector, consumer electronics, those will influence their licensing prospects as well.
Okay, so laying it all out, what are the absolute biggest risks here? What should keep an investor up at night with this stock?
Yeah, that's the critical question, isn't it? The number one risk, hands down, is the sustainability or lack thereof of their current business model.
Mhm.
They are essentially betting the entire company on these massive, sporadic, unpredictable patent
The
settlements.
High Wire Act.
Totally. If those settlements dry up or get significantly delayed, or if they lose a major case, their cash flow is in immediate danger. And that Samsung settlement, while it's a windfall, we have to keep saying it, it's a one-time event. It doesn't fundamentally solve their ongoing operating losses.
And the active litigation, like with Apple?
Notoriously unpredictable in timing and outcome. You just don't know. Huge uncertainty there.
And risks beyond the company itself.
Oh, yeah. The optical sensing and IP markets are fiercely competitive. There's always the risk of technological obsolescence. Someone comes up with something better, cheaper. Plus, any downturn in overall tech spending or significant changes to intellectual property law, those could directly impact their viability too. Lots of external risks.
Okay, so bringing this all together for everyone listening, what's the overall picture? Is Neonode a good time to buy now? What's the verdict?
Right. The bottom line, based on our analysis, looking at all the sources you provided, we'd give Neonode an overall rating of 2 out of 10.
2 out of 10. Ouch.
Yeah, it reflects the significant concerns. Now, on the positive side, to be fair, those one-time cash proceeds from Samsung may provide some temporary liquidity, give them a bit of breathing room. And their patent portfolio could, theoretically, underpin future monetization, especially if a big case, like the Apple one, concludes favorably for them.
Okay, so there's some potential upside, however speculative.
Some, yes. But the negatives are substantial. I'd even say overwhelming at this point. The core business is unprofitable, and it's shrinking. Revenue down over 18% last year, persistent losses. The stock price collapsing after the settlement news just screams market doubt about the sustainability of the model and the real impact of that cash.
And the lack of a clear plan for the money.
Exactly. The board hasn't disclosed clear plans. Future recurring revenue is deeply, deeply uncertain. Ultimately, the company is just heavily dependent on these unpredictable legal wins or settlements. It lacks diversification. It lacks a resilient core business.
So what's the recommendation for different types of investors?
Okay, for short-term trading, maybe. The high volatility might present opportunities for traders with a very, very high risk tolerance. But the risk is extreme. You're dealing with news sensitivity, legal unknowns, tax uncertainties, very low analyst visibility. It's treacherous.
And for a long-term investment.
For long-term investment, definitively not recommended. It just lacks any solid evidence of sustained profitability or growth potential. The strategic execution is highly questionable, and the material risks we've discussed just abound. It's really a speculative bet at best right now.
Wow. Okay, so it's pretty clear then. While that patent settlement brought in a chunk of cash, the market's reaction was brutal, and the company's underlying fundamentals. Well, they paint a picture of high risk and profound uncertainty for Neonode.
That's right.
And that path forward for their strategic pivot to just licensing IP, that's still very much in question.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this leaves us with a truly important question, I think, for any investor listening. When you see a company whose future is so heavily tied to these unpredictable legal outcomes, what does that really mean for its long-term viability? And maybe more importantly, what other crucial factors, perhaps sometimes overlooked, should you always prioritize when you're searching for a truly sustainable business model?
Yeah, exactly. Understanding those nuances is absolutely crucial for making informed decisions in your own investing journey. Well, thank you for joining us for this pretty intense analysis today. We really hope this has given you a much clearer understanding of Neonode. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let us know which companies you'd like us to look into next. Until then, keep learning and investing wisely.